So first of all, team, I want to tell you about the first thing is called as vendor-specific certifications. When you go to the cloud market, now previously when you started this, let's say 2010, 15 period, what happens is the main certification in the cloud market is called as Amazon Web Services certifications. Like for example, whenever you see the word called as cloud, the people will always say AWS. And after that, Azure came into the market, then Google came. And now we have a lot of providers in the market, actually. We have a lot of providers, like we have more than some 50 providers in the common market. And out of that, these are the common top providers which we have in the market. And there you can see the market share of the certificate, that particular cloud providers. And AWS is on top of it from 2010 onwards or 2006 onwards. AWS is always on top of that list. And basically a lot of cloud providers are there in the market now. So the first question here is that, how do I go for a certification? When you go for AWS, you can see that they're offering a lot of certifications. Like, see this, all these things you see here are AWS certifications. Azure offers you much more certifications. Even you can find some 50 plus certifications in Azure only for cloud computing. So what happens is that when you go to different cloud computing providers, we have a lot of certifications. AWS is providing certifications, GCP is providing, Alibaba is providing. Almost every cloud provider nowadays is providing the cloud certifications. But how to go for a cloud certification? And like in my previous webinars, I always tell one concept that whenever we say the word cloud nowadays, there is a word called as multi-cloud. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, we can call it anything, but there is a word called as multi-cloud. Okay, this is the word I want to first of all discuss with you. So this query which I am getting for a long time, that if you say that there is a multi-cloud everywhere, then what is the use of learning only one cloud platform? Like if I'm a person who is learning GCP, or if I'm a person who is learning Azure or AWS, how can I work in a multi-cloud architecture? So the first thing which we have to understand is that when we say we have to work in a multi-cloud architecture, okay, when we say we work in a multi-cloud architecture, it means that whenever you work in at least one cloud platform, let's say, for example, I am good in Alibaba, or I am good in Google Cloud Platform, or any cloud platform, understand that the basic principles of all these cloud platforms are always similar. Like, for example, they have the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services. They provide you virtual machines. They provide you storage. They provide you database services. They provide you analytical services. So anyway, the concepts and the ideas provided by all these cloud providers are almost similar. That means that a person who can learn a cloud platform can automatically learn the other cloud platform as well. Just a small effort and you will be able to learn that. That's the first thing. So whenever you go to any organization, like whenever you go to like a mid-range or above organization, what happens is that there are two types of job roles there. We have a practitioner job role and we have a professional job role. Okay. Whenever you go for any organization, there are two job roles there. We have a practitioner job role and we have a professional job role. Like we can say an engineer or architect job role and a professional job role. So what is the difference between these two job roles and how can you pursue a career in that? That's the first thing I want to tell you. Let's say, team, if you're starting with your cloud computing journey, now let's say we have a lot of people here actually. So if you are starting with your cloud journey, then CCSP is not something which you have to start with. Whenever a person is starting with the cloud platform, the primary thing I want to tell you is always start with the cloud platform knowledge. Why? Because when you go for the certifications like CCSP, Cloud Plus, or CCSK, or these kind of certifications, they expect you to have a very basic cloud knowledge. Even if we cover everything from the scratch, it is very important you to have at least one cloud platform knowledge. I'll give you a reason for that, team. Let's say we are discussing about storage or database or anything in the cloud platform in the CCSP certification. What happens is, if you're not aware of the cloud platform, or if you have not seen about this particular, or have not seen this cloud platforms, what happens there? If you have not seen the cloud platforms, or if you're not aware of it, then end of the day, you will not be able to correlate that with what is happening in the real-time scenarios. So the first thing is, you have to learn one cloud platform. That is mandatory. Okay. And that doesn't mean that you have to be master of it, but at least learn one cloud platform before you go for any other certifications. That is where you can start your cloud journey. And obviously, when you learn a cloud platform, the other platforms you can learn by yourself. Like for example, team, I started my journey with AWS and I was able to support or I was able to work in multiple cloud platforms just because I learned AWS. It's a very correlatable thing. It's very easy thing actually. Okay. That's the first thing I want to tell you. So, and most people ask me the next query is that which one to pursue? Shall we go for AWS certification or you go for Azure or anything? You can go for any certification. If you can go for AWS or Azure or GCP or any certifications you can go. But why these three providers are hot in the market is because these are the top leaders now. And they have almost all the services in the cloud platform. So basically all the other cloud providers we have in the market is just imitating them. Like, just copy the strategy of AWS or GCP or Azure, etc. So what happens is that if you learn at least any of these three platforms, you will be able to very easily understand and manage the other cloud platforms as well. So it's actually very simple. Like for example, in AWS, we call a VM, we call the virtual machines or servers as instances. In Azure, we call it as VMs. In Google, we call it as instances. In DigitalOcean, we call it as droplets. So the name only changes. The concept is always the same. Okay. So always choose from a cloud provider certification first of all and learn that. And team, one more thing is there. Let's say, for example, if you're a person who is already having more than some 8 years of experience, and if you have some security experience and all, there is no need, like, it is not mandatory that you have to go for the certification. Never learn any cloud platform for the certification. The primary problem that we basically face in the industry is that many people go for a lot of certifications and they go behind all these certifications. But more than certifications, what we have to get is actually the skill set. I'll give you some correlatable examples for the team. Let's say I am working in the cloud platform example. So tomorrow there is a requirement coming up. I must be able to solve that particular issue. Like for example, there is a security issue coming up or I want to implement a solution. If I have worked in this cloud platform, I can basically solve it better. So more than a certification, it's your skill what matters. So whenever you go for a vendor specific certification, always learn in a more hands-on perspective. It can be any certification. Okay, that's it. So I just give you an introduction about this because I want to make sure that this is the prerequisite you have to understand when you're going for any kind of advanced level certifications. The next thing is that we have a vendor neutral certifications. So when we say vendor neutral certifications, like the name says, we are not biasing to any cloud service provider. We may use some cloud providers to understand things, but except that we are not biasing to a cloud provider. Like whenever you are studying any kind of vendor neutral certifications, the primary thing which we have to understand is that, okay, these certifications are not designed to give you a hands-on knowledge in the cloud provider platforms, but more of to a cloud governance or cloud management perspectives. I will tell you what is a management perspective team. So these are the common certifications we have in the market. We can have a lot of other certifications. I have seen when you Google it, you will be able to see more than 10, 15 certifications in the market actually. But the most common and the most demanding certifications in the market is the first one is a CCSP, then we have a CCSK, then we have a Cloud Plus. So first of all, team, whatever experience you're having, if you have some security experience or if you have some network experience or if you're basically working in those kind of platforms, obviously it's very important that you have to start with the cloud platform. Then you can go for any of these certifications. But how do I go for a certification? So I will give a simple example for this. So if people ask that, okay, which is the one which is having most demand? It's all based on the job role. Like if you go for the CompTIA Cloud Plus, it is more of a technical certification. CompTIA Cloud Plus is more of a technical certification. They are basically revised their curriculum, and this particular curriculum is very, very, very interesting. And this is more of a technical certification. Even if we are studying a lot of theoretical things in that, this is more of a technical things like virtualization, the storage, those kind of like that baseline things are what covering it most. That's a very good thing to start your career. Then we have a CCSP and CCSK. Okay. We have a CCSP and CCSK. Yes, I'll discuss about that. And team, you will hear a lot of other words, like you will hear the word called as CASB, or you will hear the word called as cloud, multi-cloud design management, or multi-cloud design architectures, a lot of things like that. All these things you can learn by yourself. Never spend any time or any money on learning this particular thing, cloud list, this CASB and all. Because CASB and all is basically very easily manageable. You can very easily learn actually. Okay. Anyway, let's go to this one by one. The first thing I want to discuss with you is about the Cloud Plus certification, just to give you an idea about what is Cloud Plus certification. Okay, when I say the word Cloud Plus certification, so it is done by the body called as CompTIA. We already know that CompTIA is a very, very well-known name in the market. And this is the examination called as Cloud Plus, which validates your skill to optimize and manage and maintain the cloud services. But definitely, team, when you go for a CompTIA Cloud Plus certification, you need to have some prerequisites. So at least one cloud platform is mandatory, and you can add that with everything what I'm saying. Whenever you go for CCSP or AWS or CCSK or Cloud Plus or anything, always keep these points in mind. Okay. The primary thing is that when you say any certification, this point will come on top always. So it is preferred that you must have a awareness of at least one public cloud platform. And that is not necessarily AWS only. It can be any platform, but at least one cloud platform. The next thing is you need to have a basic networking knowledge. It's mandatory to have a basic networking knowledge, like what is networking, what is IP addressing, subnetting, virtualization, VPN, Active Directory, Linux commands. So if you have some basics of all these things at least, that can help you a lot in learning a lot of topics and terminologies. And the next thing is, when you go for this Cloud Plus certification, as we discussed, Cloud Plus is more of a technical perspective. Cloud Plus, even if it's a vendor-neutral certification, it's a very, very awesome certification. And this particular certification is more of a technical thing. You can check their websites for the latest curriculum, and also you can check the InfosecTrain website for the blog group posting on this latest examination pattern and all. Okay, that's it. The next one is, team, we have a CCSK certification. CCSK is one of the best certifications you can get in the vendor-neutral perspective, especially in the management side. So CCSK is offered by the body called as Cloud Security Alliance. Okay. CCSK is offered by the body called as Cloud Security Alliance. And this certification is something which is not having any expiry date. For a CCSK certification, there is no expiry date. And all you have to study is that they are basically giving you three materials. That is, one is they are all giving you a CSA guidance manual. There are only three textbooks. CSA guidance manual, then you have a CCM document, then you have a NISA document. These are the three things you have to study for the certification. You can get all these materials for free in the official CSA website. So you can study anytime you want, and you can write the exam anytime you want. The main thing about the exam is this exam is an open book exam. So you can write the exam anytime you want. All you have to do is you have to purchase a voucher, and this voucher can be used for 2 attempts. And the only thing is that whenever you want, you can write the exam. But even if we say that it's an open book examination, I have seen many people make the mistake that I have seen many people posting on LinkedIn also saying that they tried to write this exam and they failed. The reason why, because when people think about this examination, okay, anyway, it's an open book examination, so it is very easy to pass. Let's take the textbook and we'll be able to pass. All the questions you are getting on the CCSK examination may be more from a scenario perspective, and more from your examination perspective, like more from your suggestion perspective. And they will ask you queries on based on some scenarios or some challenges or some best practices and all. So because of that reason, if you, let's say, as it is an open book examination, you have to make sure that you prepare the concepts very well before going for the CCSK examination. Okay, that's it. So the cost is $395 US. And you have 2 attempts. You can write whenever you want. There is no time for there is no specific time you have to write. You can, whenever you want, you can write. Once you feel prepared, you can write the examination definitely. Okay, that's it. So the next thing is, we have a CCSP certification. That is what we are going to focus on now. We have a CCSP certification. CCSP stands for Certified Cloud Security Professional. It is by the body called as ISC Square. Okay, CCSP is by the body called as ISC Square. It stands for International Information System Security Certification Consortium. So IC Square is basically founded on 1989. It is almost 30 years now. And it's a body which is basically providing the certifications and standard for a lot of cloud practice and all. And what happens is that they basically provide security certifications, cloud certifications and all. Okay. And the common certifications by IC Square is called as a CISSP and CCSP. They have a lot more certifications and all, but this is the common certification, CISSP and CCSP. So we have to discuss about what is CCSP and how you can basically prepare for it. As we discussed, the CCSP is a complete vendor neutral certification. Okay. It's a complete vendor neutral certification. And what happens is that this particular certification is actually valid for 3 years, and this examination is very challenging one. If you want to pass this examination, you have to prepare very well. Why? Because not like the other certification, which is much more easier. This certification is testing your maximum skill set. Like, for example, it will test your skill set on every areas like data security, legal and compliance, cloud fundamentals, design of cloud data centers, BCPDR, everything they will test your skills. So you have to prepare well for this examination, and that is something which you have to go step by step. I'll tell you how to prepare for that, and I'll give you some sample questions to analyze how can you write the examination. Okay, that's it. The next thing is, for writing this examination, IC Square mandates you some experience requirements. The first one is, if you want to write the examination or if you want to pass the examination and get a CCSP, you have to have 5 years of cumulative paid working experience in IT with 3 years in information security. Okay, you need to have 5 years of cumulative paid working experience in IT with the 3 years must be in the information security and 1 year in at least one or more domain of the CCSP common body of knowledge. So this is the requirement. Okay, let's say for example, if I'm not having the requirement, what we can do? Like for example, most people ask the query that, okay, what if I don't satisfy this requirement? Even if you don't satisfy this requirement, you can write the examination. Okay, you can write the examination, and once you pass the examination, you will get an IC Square associate. You will become an IC Square associate. So the associate of IC Square will have 6 years to earn the experience required for this certification. That's the basic of this course thinking. And definitely this is a combination of IC Square plus Cloud Security Alliance, but we are basically saying this IC Square CCSP. Okay, that's all. So team, now this is the examination things which we have to understand. The exam is actually 3 hours. Okay, the examination of CCSP is actually 3 hours, which means 180 minutes. And you have total 125 questions in the examination. And this 125 questions, out of these questions, 100 questions is what you are get the score for. Don't forget, you have 125, you have to write 125 questions in the examination. And out of this 125, the scoring you will get for the 100 questions. And the rest 25 questions, it is basically for research purposes. Okay, it is basically for research purposes. So 100 questions, you will get the score, and 125 questions, it is for research purposes. But we will not be able to know that which is the research one and which is the actual question. And the question formats can be multiple choice and drag and drop. Okay, it can be multiple choice scenario-based questions and drag and drop. And the passing score of the examination is 700 out of 1000. But definitely, team, there is one more thing. Even if I say the passing score is 700 out of 1000, IC Square will never tell you the score. The primary point is that IC Square will never tell you the score of this particular thing. That means that once you finish your examination, once you click on finish, what happens is they will tell you either you have passed or you have failed. Except that passing or failing, they will not tell you that your score. If you pass, they will tell you you passed. And if you fail, they will give you a domain-wise proficiency note, which defines which domain you have weak or which domain you have scored much. Okay, that you will not get the score. And one more new change happened in the examination, that now you cannot go back to the previous question. While writing the examination, once you click on the next option, there's a next option here. Once you click on the next option, you will not be able to go back to the previous question. Okay, that's a main point. The next thing is you cannot mark for review. No, it's not same as CCSP. So what happens is you cannot mark for review. That means that you write an examination. Okay, while you write the examination, you click on an answer. You have to write an answer, and then only you can go to the next question. Okay, that's it. And this exam is not offered online. And as of now, from the update from IC Square, they will not be offering this exam online for at least for the next few months. Anyway, as of now, there is no plan from IC Square to offer the exam online. The exam you have to book in any Pearson Review Center, and you have to go there and write the examination. Now, the next thing is, we have to know how to prepare for this examination and what all things you have to keep in mind. Okay, that's it. So, first of all, team, we need to know what is the mindset we must have for this particular certification. Like what all mindset you must have for the certification. I will give you one example, team. Let's say if I am telling you, you have to write the AWS examination, or if I am telling you have to write Azure examination or anything like that. The mindset you must have is a pure technical mindset. That means that let's say, for example, you're writing the AWS Certified Solutions Architect exam, or if you're writing the AWS Security Specialty, or you're writing the Machine Learning Specialty, all the questions you are getting, almost 99% questions you are getting will be from the pure technical perspective. They will ask you, what is the cloud service for doing this? How can we do that? How can we do this? There is an error like this, how to troubleshoot it? There is an issue like this, how to troubleshoot it? So all these certifications like AWS or Azure or all these things are purely from a technical perspective, 100% purely from a technical perspective. You have to know the cloud platform well. You must have a really good hands-on experience, and based on that only, you will get this particular, you will be able to pass the exam. And of course, team, these certifications, I know that when you go for the certifications, you can get a lot of practice questions in the internet, and using that, you will be able to very easily pass the examination for these certifications. But for CCSP, there is no dumps, because IC Square keep on changing the questions, and the questions will not be available in the market. So what happens is, it is completely confidential, and the questions will not be revealed, and because every candidate has to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, before starting the examination. Okay, that's it. So what is the mindset you must have for the CCSP? So team, if I am saying that the mindset required, we always say that we require the mindset of a manager. We say that we require the mindset of a management person. But what does it mean by that? Like, if I'm asking you, team, if I'm asking you, which is the best cloud platform? If I'm simply asking you which is the best cloud platform, some people will say AWS, some people will say Azure, some people will say GCP or any other platforms. But when you become a CCSP perspective, what you are concerned is about your business. Your business is what you're concerned about. Your organization is what you're concerned about. And for your business or for your organization, your requirement is what matters. See, I work for an organization. So for my organization, we have some requirements. So I have to find a solution which is basically most effectively managing my business requirements. Okay, I have to effectively find a solution which can be more effectively managing my company or organization's requirement. Okay, that is what we basically have to think about. And as we discussed, when you go for any kind of certification like AWS and all, it's all about what can be done in that particular platform. But here in this case, what happens is, it is not something what you can do in this particular platform, but how can we do it for the business? How can we do it for the organization? Okay, that's it. So I will give you some example questions here, and I will tell you how this particular examination is designed for that. And you may have to know a lot of other things. See, IC Square is telling you that you must have all these experience, right? The reason is because you have to know a lot of security principles and a lot of other things if you want to basically get this examination here. Okay, that's it. And definitely, if you have a CCSP experience or any kind of certifications like that, prior experience like that, it can basically help you a lot in this particular examination. So these are the domains of the CCSP examination. So we have a cloud concepts, architecture and design, cloud data security, cloud platform and infra security, cloud application security, cloud security operations, and legal risk and compliance. So out of these domains, team, the domain one is more about the cloud fundamentals and the cloud basic architecture, like starting from the what is cloud, how the cloud can be working, or what are the fundamental principles of cloud computing, what are the cloud service models, and those kind of basics are what we cover in the first domain. In the second domain, we will cover about the cloud data security. The third domain, we will cover about more from the cloud provider perspective. Like domain 3 is more from the cloud service provider's perspective. What is a cloud service provider's perspective? Like I am assuming that I am having my own cloud platform, or basically I work for a cloud service provider. In that perspective, what all things we have to keep in mind while designing a cloud platform, and the cloud application security and cloud security operations. So all these domains we will discuss in detail now. Okay, that's it. So to start with theme, we will start with the first domain, cloud concepts, architecture and design. So how do I basically define the cloud concepts, architecture and design? Let me show you a simple document. And this is the document you have to refer for your examination. Why? Because this is the official document by IC Square. See this? You have to go through the exam outline, and this document is basically the latest one is August 1, 2019, and there's no revisions after that. So it gives you a complete idea about what you have to study and what is your what all things you have to keep in mind and everything. Okay, that's it. So We will start with the domain one. Okay. The domain one of the CCSP examination, as we discussed, is about the cloud concepts, architecture, and design. Okay. Domain one is more about the cloud concepts, architecture, and design. So there are a few changes basically every time they happens in the examination. First of all, team, in this domain, we have to know what is a cloud computing. And when we say what is a cloud computing, we have to understand how can we say something as a cloud platform. So I am saying that AWS is cloud platform. I am saying Azure is a cloud platform. So how do I know something is a cloud platform, or how can I define something as a cloud platform? So you have to learn the key cloud computing characteristics to know what is the cloud platform. Okay. This is what we have to study in the first thing. What is a cloud platform? The next thing is we have a lot of job roles in the market, we have a lot of actors in the cloud computing. I'll give an example, team. Now one person asked me, Chris, what is CASB? What is a cloud broker? Like the way we have a cloud broker, we have a cloud auditor, we have a cloud service partner, we have a cloud service provider. So how can we define all these things? And who is responsible for what? When you go to the cloud platform, one main challenge we have is that, one advantage and one challenge we have is that we have a shared responsibility. Like for example, let's say I'm now going to AWS. When you take a particular service, certain responsibilities will lie with you and certain responsibilities will be with the cloud service provider. So you have to understand which all responsibilities are always retained by the customer and which all responsibilities are with the cloud service provider. And we have to have a clear understanding of how to differentiate the cloud services. Okay, that's it. The next thing which we have to understand is that what are the building blocks? So team, when you say building blocks, I always say this word. When you say cloud computing, we have two words here, right? We have a cloud and we have a computing. See this? We have two words here. Cloud means anything which we access via internet. Cloud means anything we access via internet is called as cloud. And computing means what? Computing means like now we are able to communicate each other. How we are able to communicate now? You are using your mobile phone, your laptop or your iPad, right? How we are able to communicate, team? We are able to communicate with the help of three things. We have a CPU and memory. Network connectivity, right? These are the three building blocks we are having now, right? Your laptop is having a CPU, a memory, a storage, and a network connectivity. Like the same way, this is what people need for doing everything, right? Like for example, if I want to host a website, if I want to do some processing, if I want to run some machine learning models, for doing everything, I have to get these three things. I need some CPU capacity, I need some RAM, I need some storage, I need some network capacity. And that is what we call as computing. So providing these computing capabilities via internet or public network is what you call as cloud computing. And that is the exact building block of cloud also. The cloud is built of three things: compute, that is CPU and memory, storage, and network. So we have to have a clear understanding of what is these three things and how these three things are used in the cloud platform. Because we have a concept called as resource pooling, like how these things are pooled to give you the service, or how these particular things are given to you to ensure that the customers are able to get the service. See, when you go to any cloud platform, you are getting services, right? Whatever things you're taking, it's a service. How they are able to provide the service? What are the baseline or building block technologies they are using for that? That is the next thing. So this particular module is very easy, but even from this module itself, you can always expect one question in the examination for sure. From this module, you can expect at least one question in the examination, because you can get some very confusing questions also sometimes. Because maybe you will get a question from the cloud broker, you may get a question from this cloud characteristics, but anyway, minimum one question is always guaranteed. The next thing is that, team, we describe the cloud reference architecture. So when we say cloud reference architecture, what does it mean by that? Like, we know that in the cloud platform, we have different kind of services. So what is the services we are using? Like, for example, we have a IaaS, we have a PaaS, we have a SaaS. But when you learn from a CCSP perspective, we are not learning this in the perspective of a technical person, but we are saying that what are the responsibilities retained by the customer? What are the responsibilities given to the cloud service provider? When you go to the IaaS, what are the risks involved? No, cloud broker is not same as cloud provider. Cloud broker is entirely different entity actually. Cloud broker means it helps us to manage multiple cloud providers. Like if I'm having multiple cloud providers in my organization, to manage them in a more easier way, I can go for a cloud broker. It's like a console, that's all. Okay. But can provide a lot of things. So we have to understand the responsibilities and uses of each models. So team, why we are studying all these things? We are studying all these things because the main reason that we are studying all these things, because tomorrow, let's say you are working in an organization. Okay. You have a AWS expert, you have Azure expert, you have people who is working in the cloud platform very effectively. But how do I go for a cloud service? How do I ensure that this is the best cloud platform we have to go for? If you ask a AWS person that which is the best cloud platform, they will say AWS, or they will say the particular service name. But if you ask Azure person, he will say this service name. But how do I know that which is the best one for my business? How do I know what are the risks involved? How do I So hello everyone, welcome to InfosecTrain. Today we'll have a small bootcamp on the provider. The only way I can talk to my group. So we have to identify the various things. Okay, you can basically what are the fines or how can it? What are the procedures for taking them to the court of law, or what are the penalties involved? Everything is properly mentioned in the contract. Like for example, okay, they are guaranteeing me 99.99% availability. But if they fail to provide me that, they have to give this penalty, or I can take them to the court of law. Okay. Like the same way, there's a lot of things we have to learn in that. And this point is very important all over the exam team. I have seen many times in the examination. So the contract in SLA is the baseline document for any cloud platform. Okay. Because if you want to talk to the cloud platform, the only way is SLA. The next thing is auditability. See, auditability in the sense means, see, if you want to verify something, you want to audit. Like for example, okay, I want to know if that is providing the quality for me. So the only way is I have to do the audit, right? I have to always audit. But when I say I have to audit, how do I go to the cloud service provider's premise and do the auditing? It's not possible, right? It is not possible for me to go to the cloud service provider's premises and do the auditing, right? What I have to do there is I have to go through the audit reports by third-party providers like ISO, like those kind of providers who are not having any relationship with the cloud service provider, those authorized bodies across the globe. There are a lot of audit reports where you can go through it. We call it as artifacts and compliance documents. Okay, you can go through that. Then this is a new topic in the examination, but now you are getting a lot of questions on this. Especially this particular topic is very important for you. Okay, why? Because now containers are getting hot in the market. So basically there is a lot of questions coming up in that. So they will ask you that what is the use of these particular technologies? So it doesn't mean that you have to learn all these things in detail, but you have to understand that what is the use of machine learning or AI or blockchain and how these things can be beneficial by the cloud. If you open your AWS account, okay, just to give you an example, if I open my AWS account, you can see that there is a lot of machine learning services now. Okay, if you open your Azure account, if you open your GCP account, there's a lot of machine learning and AI services. Why it is like that? We are having a lot of machine learning and AI service because cloud is the best playground for all these things. Cloud provides the best playground for all these things. Okay, so what we have to understand is that how these things are benefited by the cloud platform, how these particular things like CPU capacity and memory capacity and all these things can be provided to all these different kind of technologies. And this is a guaranteed exam question nowadays, containers. So containers in the sense means like we know that we have virtualization. So in the virtualization, how this particular virtualization thing can be like, how this is utilized in the form of containers now. What is containers, or what are the security constraints which we have to understand in the perspective of a container? So that is very important. Okay. So the next thing is we have a understand the security concepts in the cloud computing. I guarantee you, team, in this topic, this is the one which is there for exam every time. This topic is guaranteed for the exam every time. So team, what happens is we have a cryptography and key management. Encryption, cryptography, key management. There is a guarantee question on that in every examination, but it will be a scenario-based question. So we have to understand what is encryption, how to store the key files, how to ensure that the key files are properly stored, or what are the best practices, what is the HSM device, all these things you will get in the examination. And there is a word called as data and media sanitization. I'll give an example for that, team. So what is the best way to ensure that your data is deleted? Let's say, for example, I'm having some data with me. What is the best way I can ensure my data is completely deleted in a way it is unrecoverable? Tell me, how can we ensure that my storage is basically having all the data completely removed? It is always, there is no reason, no way it can be recovered. Definitely, even after you do low-level format, you will be able to do that. Even if you overwrite, it is possible. But at the same time, that the only thing is that you have to physically destroy the device. You have to physically destroy the device. The best way is that you have to physically destroy you have to take out the device, you have to crush the device into small pieces, you have to shred the device. Right? You have to shred. But at the same time, is it possible for you to go to the cloud service provider's premises and do the shredding? Can you basically take your like knife or basically some axe and go to the cloud service provider's premises and do this process? It's not possible, right? So what is the next best practice we have in the cloud platform? The best way in the cloud platform is called as crypto shredding or cryptographic erasure. See this? This is the best way to delete a data in the cloud platform. Crypto shredding or cryptographic erasure. This is the only way which is the best in the cloud platform. And then we have to understand about the network security. What is security group? So this concept is even specific to some cloud providers, but still the name is common for everyone. So what happens is, let's say for example, we have an instance or we have a VM, virtual machine here. So the firewall configuration for the virtual machine is called a security group. Okay. When you go to any cloud platform, basically what happens is for every VM you are creating or every instance you are creating, you have a firewall configuration. That firewall configuration you have, which is what you call as a security group. So we have to understand what is the purpose of a security group and all. Then we have to understand what are the factors for virtualization security. This is a very interesting point. The reason why, because if you don't have a virtualization, you cannot have a cloud platform. That's the first thing. If you don't have a virtualization, you cannot have a cloud platform. Why? Because the whole cloud platform relies on the virtualization. And the hypervisor is the tool which helps us to provide virtualization. Like for example, we have a tool called as VMware ESXi, Hyper-V, or let's say we have VMware Workstation Pro. We have a lot of tools like that. So these tools are something which can help us in that particular process. See this? This is the example for a hypervisor. On this tool, we can deploy the virtual machines. So the next thing is, team, we have a common threats. What are the threats we have to face in all these kind of things? So the next module or the next topic is called as cloud secure or understand the design principles of secure cloud computing. So when we say cloud design principles, okay, first of all, we have to understand about the cloud secure data lifecycle. Cloud secure data lifecycle. So what is a cloud secure data lifecycle? So when you store your data in the cloud platform, from the time the data is created until the data is destroyed, what all things are there in the, or what all forms the data will take, what all security you must have, what all permissions you must have, what are the factors you have to keep in mind, is mentioned in the cloud secure data lifecycle. I want to say it in a very simple word, CSUSAD, which stands for create, store, use, share, archive, and destroy. So basically we have 6 phases in the cloud data lifecycle: create, store, use, share, archive, destroy. We have to understand what happens to data in every step and what all activities are happening in every steps of this cloud data lifecycle. Then the most important question in the examination, you can get a lot of questions on this BCDS strategy. I'll give you a simple example, team. Team, can you tell me who is responsible for business continuity in the cloud platform? In the cloud platform, business continuity is always the responsibility of the cloud customer. Cloud service consumer, cloud service customer. Why? Because, see, you know that AWS provides regions and availability zones. Azure provides regions and availability zones. So the cloud provider helps you to provide this resiliency and all, right? But you have to select the proper services and you have to use the proper things to ensure that these particular services or these particular categories or these particular things are effectively utilized to provide business continuity. So business continuity is always your responsibility, not the provider's responsibility. That is one very big challenge in the CCSP examination, team. They will basically give you some questions which will ask you exactly what is your responsibility and what is the provider's responsibility. Sometimes the terminologies can confuse you a lot. Okay. The next thing is they will ask you about the cost benefit analysis. Okay. So when we say cost benefit, what does it mean by that? So I go to the cloud platform and I have seen many people say that when you talk about the cloud platform, the cloud is very cheaper. The cloud is more cost effective. But how do I know the cloud is more cost effective? How do I know the cloud is cheaper? If you basically go for the cloud platform, okay, if you basically go for the cloud platform, what happens is, if you don't know how to plan your infra properly, if you don't know how to choose the services properly, the cloud can increase the cost and risk, of course. That is why we have to understand it properly, and we have to understand the benefits and cost analysis. And we have to understand the keywords like vendor portability, interoperability, and all. Okay, that's it. So when you say cloud customer, it can be anyone. It can be the customer of the cloud provider. Like for example, if I own a company, my company is having a contract with Azure. So my company is the customer. That's all. Then we have some certification scheme, like we have a certification like the PCI-DSS, ISO, FIPS. How these certifications are beneficial for the cloud customers, or what all things we have to understand about the certification is very important. Okay. So anyway, from this domain, almost every topic is important, but especially from this first two things, the first two, understand cloud computing concepts and describe the cloud reference architecture. From these two modules, you will get guaranteed questions. Then there is a very high chance that you can get the questions from the cloud data lifecycle. The next domain is team, we have a cloud data security. When you say the word called as cloud data security, what does it mean by that? The cloud data security, okay, the cloud data security is about how to secure my data in the cloud platform. So when you go to the cloud platform, you're expecting two things. You want to store two things. One is you want to have your data there. Second is you expect a functionality, right? You expect a functionality, you expect a service from them, right? So this data is a very sensitive thing. End of the day, if something goes wrong, you are responsible, right? Let's say, for example, I own a business. I have some personal data. I store it in the cloud platform, and tomorrow if something goes wrong, I have to be answerable to the authorities. I have to answer to the court of law. I have to answer customers, right? So data is a very important concept which you have to understand. And you will get a lot of questions from this cloud data lifecycle for sure. And we will discuss about data dispersion. And what is data dispersion? It is a very similar concept like the RAID concept. In the on-premises, we have a concept called as RAID, right? Implementing the RAID concept in the cloud platform is called as data dispersion. The next one is design and implement cloud data storage architecture. So I will give you a very simple tip for the exam here, team. So what happens is, team, when you say the word called as cloud storage architecture, when you go to any cloud platform, they are providing you every cloud services in the form of, they are providing you every storage in the form of cloud services. Like for example, we have Amazon S3, Azure Blob Containers, we have Amazon EBS, we have a lot of services like that. All these things are provided to you in the form of all services. But definitely, team, for learning this, I strongly recommend you have the basics of on-premises storage. I'll give you a simple examination question pattern here. It's not an actual exam question. This is a sample question I'm trying to give you. See, you can expect questions like this. A cloud security engineer would like to deploy a VM image that maps a centralized storage volume to different availabilities on CSP in the quickest way as possible. Which of the following is the best method for achieving this goal? So when you see this question, okay, they are asking about something called as a LUN. LUN is a concept which is related to storage, and we discuss more in the on-premises technologies. In the cloud platform, you will not hear the word called as LUNs, right? We talk about S3, we talk about AWS and all. But at the same time, what is this LUN concept? LUN is something which is basically something which we'll study in the on-premises. So if you have a SAN storage, in the SAN storage, the storage is basically given to the computers in the form of LUNs. It's a virtual unit, virtual storage unit. So using this concept, the cloud provider is providing you volume storage. So the IC Square expect you to have a particular basic knowledge before you learn this cloud. Like for example, that is why they are giving you this experience requirements. So when you study this, let's say when you study this storage like block storage or volume storage, okay. The answer is use a unique logical number LUN ID for each server. Like it's very simple. Like whenever you're mapping a LUN storage, okay, you have to have a LUN ID. That is ID is which we map it actually. It's a unique number actually. Okay, that's it. Answer is B. Anyway, I'm just giving an example there, team. Like the same way, you have to know some basic technologies. Like you have to know RAID, you have to know the concept of LUN, NAS, SAN, and these basics or prerequisites are basic. They are expecting, but it's very fine. You have to know the basics only. Okay, that's it. The next thing is they will tell you the various kinds of cloud storage threats. Like for example, like the same way we have a lot of threats for the storage in the on-premises, in the cloud storage also we face a lot of threats. So we will have to discuss that as well. Okay. And definitely team, they will give you some use cases also. Sometimes they will give you a scenario and they will ask you which is the best storage suited for this particular requirement. So you have to clearly understand the storage types, what are the practical use cases, and how it can be implemented, and the threats to that. The next thing is, there is a guarantee question that from this, there is always a question for sure. Especially this encryption is a very important thing. What is encryption? How this thing can be used? Then we have a hashing, we have a tokenization, we have a DLP. So all these things we have to understand in a very detailed way, and how these things can be done in the cloud platform. Then we have a data discovery and data classification. So we have to know clearly the difference between DRM and IRM. Also, when you learn this DRM and IRM team, they will definitely ask you a concept of defense in depth. Defense in depth. So defense in depth is a concept which is there in the cloud platform as well as on-premises. Like for example, when you talk about security, if you want to enforce maximum security, what we have to do? We have to ensure that there is a multi-layered security architecture. That multi-layered security architecture can be achieved with the help of technology called as defense in depth. So how can we implement defense in depth in the cloud platform? That also we have to understand. Because these topics are very, very lengthy team. That's why I'm just giving you some overview of all these things, what you have to focus on not. Then this is super important. Like when you store some data in the cloud platform, we have to follow these practices, like how long we have to keep the data. Let's say, for example, I know that I have to keep this data for the next, let's say 5 years or 10 years or 3 years. When I say I want to keep the data for a long time like this, how do I store it? Or why we have this data retention policy? And what is the best way to store the data? What all things we have to keep in mind? And how can we delete the data properly in the cloud platform? So what is chain of custody? What is accountability? So all these things will be there in the examination. So domain 2 is said to be the largest domain with the percentage of 19, but still you don't think like that. Just think about the topics. Okay. So we have a domain 3. Domain 3 is more about the cloud service providers perspective. Okay. Domain 3 is more about a cloud service providers perspective. Like they will tell you the fundamentals of the cloud computing platform, especially some additional things. Like for example, let's say when you go to the cloud platform, we have to understand all these things in the basic manner. And this is the bonus for the cloud platform. When you go to the cloud platform, okay, this particular, let's say we can say that the cloud platform can be accessed with the help of a cloud management console, right? We have a cloud management console. We can access the cloud platform from this management console. When you get the cloud platform from this management console, what happens there, team? How can we secure the management console? Why? Because if you don't secure the management console, it will act as a single point of failure. Don't forget. Why it is like that? See, let's say for example, team, I'll give you a simple picture here. I am trying to log into my cloud. If I click on sign into my cloud platform, you will be able to see my servers, you will be able to see my storage, you will be able to see my database and everything, right? When you log into the cloud platform, you will be able to see all these kind of things. So how do I ensure that that particular management console is secured? That is what we have to study. The best practices for securing the cloud management console. Then we have to understand the various data center design standards. Like what are the standards like Uptime Institute, ISO 22237? What are the standards there for securing the design for a data center? Or how can we design a data center for the cloud platform? And what are the risks involved and what are the cloud specific risks? See, basically, when you go for the cloud infrastructure, all the risk in the on-premises data center will be there for the cloud also. But cloud is having some more additional risk. I'll give you an example, team. What is the primary security risk in the cloud platform? When you go to the cloud platform, the primary security risk in the cloud platform is multi-tenancy. When you go to any cloud platform, the primary security risk is that we have a multi-tenancy. What does it mean by that? You are sharing the hardware with multiple customers. So how the cloud service provider is providing the separation? Let's say, for example, now this is the storage device. So this is the data of, this is my data. This is the data of a different person. So when we have two different people here, this particular separation we have here is simply logical. Logical means it's just a virtual thing, right? How do I break this? What happens if this barrier is broken? What happens if one customer is able to see the data of other customer? So all these things we have to understand how we can mitigate it, or we can basically have a countermeasure for all these things. Then we will discuss about the design and plan for security controls. Like for example, there is a lot of scenarios where we have the risk involved in designing security, like physical security and fire and smoke and fire management and all these kind of things. And how do I analyze the cloud platform? How do I analyze the packets? How do I monitor the cloud platform? All these things are very important. And definitely some terminologies like RTO, RPO, RSL, all these kind of BCDR terminologies is very important in the cloud, this particular thing also. Okay. So we have a domain 14. Now we have a domain 4. Domain 4 is more about the cloud application security. When we say cloud application security, what we learn there is, first of all, we will learn that when we go for a cloud platform, okay, when we go for a cloud platform, we have something called as a applications. I want to host some applications there. Okay. I want to host some applications there. What is the difference between hosting an application in the on-premises and what is the difference between hosting the application in the cloud platform? The next point is, when you host an application in the cloud platform, what are the problems involved there? What are the common vulnerabilities there? Then they will ask you, when you have an application in your existing infrastructure, how you can take this application to the cloud platform. See, I'll give an example, team. Let's say we are having an application which is designed some 15, 20 years ago, or let's say 15 years ago. We have an application which is designed 15 years back. So when we have an application designed 15 years back, how do you suppose this application to work in the cloud platform? Because that time the cloud was not there in the market much. So how can we ensure that what are the threats involved in moving an application to the cloud platform? And what is SDLC? Starting from the collection of requirements from the customer until the software is deployed, how the software is developed and designed and deployed is what we define as SDLC. How can we do it in a secure manner? What all security aspects are involved in the SDLC process is what we study in the secure SDLC. The next is, what are the factors like BA and PT? What is the difference between BA and PT? Vulnerability assessment and pen testing. What is the difference between static testing and dynamic testing? Those kind of terms also is very important. Then, this is the guaranteed in the exam, API. See, without this API, there is no cloud. Cloud is completely relying on this APIs. So what does it mean by that? You go to the cloud platform, you open something, you click on some services, you open some applications, you delete something, you create something. When you go for the cloud platform, whatever things you're doing, you're actually making the API calls. There you're making something called as API calls. So it is a very important thing to understand what is an API, what are the different types of APIs like REST and SOAP API. What is the difference? Which is the most commonly used one? What is the advantages there? And what is an application or software supply chain management? How the supply chain can give you a challenge. This is the guaranteed exam. We have various kinds of security devices. Like if you want to host an application, we know that the applications are vulnerable to a lot of threats. So what are the security components there to protect this particular applications like web application firewall, database activity monitoring, and those kind of things. Then federated identity. So in every exam team, there is a high chance that you can get a question on this. Why? Because when you go for cloud platform, the primary thing which matters is the authentication, right? So for authentication, what we need to have an identity. If you want to have authentication, we need to have an identity. And when it comes to identity, there is a word called as federation. So I'll give an example, team. I want to log into your website. Have you seen that when you log into some websites, they will give you option to log in with your Facebook account or log in with your Google account and all? How it happens? How to ensure a centralized authentication? What is single sign-on? So various standards used for federation like SAML, OpenID, like OAuth and all. So all these things, basically, it's very important. Especially SAML is most important in the examination, because in every examination, the students are giving a feedback that there is one question from this federated standards, like SAML and all, okay? The next one is, we have a domain 5, cloud security operations. So in the domain 5, we have to understand about the various kind of cloud hardware requirements. Like for example, what is a BIOS and how this BIOS can give you a challenge in the security? What is a TPM module? And what is the challenges for having a virtualization there? How can you configure a virtual hardware? See, like the same way we are monitoring and securing the physical hardware, we have to monitor and manage the virtual hardware, how it can be done. And then installation of guest operating system. How can we basically do that? What is the baseline strategies we have to follow for that? Then they will ask you about VLANs. So in VLANs, SSL, TLS, VPN, these are very important examination. Why? Because the cloud provider is basically dividing this or segregate these customers with the help of this SDN and VLANs and these kind of technologies. So because of that reason, SDN, VLAN, VXLAN, SSL, TLS, all these technologies are highly testable in the examination. And how they are basically securing the operating system and how to ensure that the customers are getting proper resources. And what are the various protocols we use for remote management, like for example, SSH, RDP and all. How to ensure proper patch management. And how to ensure there is a proper hardware monitoring. And this is the most important one. From this, every time we can get a question. See, various kinds of management, like change management, continuous management. And not only learn this team, you have to understand or you have to be able to correlate these things. Let me give you an example, team. So, what is the purpose of incident management? So, the primary purpose of incident management is to restore it back to operation as soon as possible. Like, for example, now you're telling me my laptop is not working, or let's say my laptop is having some issue. So, the role of incident management is to make sure we can resume the operation as soon as possible. So, I'll do some fixing there, I will do some process there. End of the day, you are able to work. You are able to get back to work. That is what we call as incident management. But what is the role of problem management? So problem management occurs as a part of this. What is that? The role of a problem management is to basically do the root cause analysis. I'll give an example, team. Now you're telling me, Krish, my laptop is not working. So I will basically come there, I fix it. Again, tomorrow you're telling me the same thing. Again, I fix it. Like it happens continuously. So why it happens continuously? We are trying to fix the issue. We are trying to just make it back to work only, right? But we are not trying to understand what is the root reason of it or what is the root cause of it. That is what we call as problem management. I'll give you one more example, team. Now in AWS, we have a tool called as AWS Guard Duty. This Guard Duty is a tool which will help us to identify various incidents like SIEM tools and all. It's a kind of SIEM tool. It helps us to identify the various incidents. Okay, there is a DDoS attack, there is a brute force attack. But there is a tool called as AWS Detective, which will tell you why this attack occurred. So these kind of things are very important. Especially in the cloud platform, these are very important and you can always expect a question on this. Also, what is forensics and what are the challenges we have in the forensic? Like for example, if you go to the on-premises, you have full access to the computers, right? And when you have full access to the computers, you know where to do the forensics. But the problem is when you go to the cloud platform, you are heavily relying on the cloud service provider. And when you rely on the cloud service provider, what happens there, team? The forensic activities, how we can do that, or what all strategies we have to follow for that process. And who are the relevant parties in cloud computing? What is the role of IDS IPS system? What is the role of a SIEM solution? All these things we have to understand. And finally, team, we have one more domain called as Domain 6, Legal Risk and Compliance. So, cloud platform is definitely, it's a very important thing. Even if it's a very small domain, this is a very important one. I'll give a reason for that. So when you go to the cloud platform, the main challenge we have is cloud is a global offering, right? So now I am able to open it from India. If you are in US, you are able to open it. You are in UK, you are able to open it. If you are in Indonesia, you are able to open it. So wherever you are able to access the cloud platform. How it happens? Because cloud is a global offering. And when this cloud platform can be accessed from anywhere in the world, it can cause a serious legal challenges. So what are the common legal challenges, or what all things we have to keep in mind while storing data in the cloud platform? How can we store some private data? Like how can we store some functional data in the cloud platform? What all rules and regulations are there for protecting the privacy of an individual there? What are the common regulations like HIPAA, PCDSS, or this GDPR? What all things are there to protect the privacy of an individual? How do I understand all these things? Or how do I ensure the cloud service provider is complying with all these things? Then we have to understand who is responsible for what. And if there's an issue occurs, how to mitigate it? What is the various kinds of mechanism where we can manage the risk? Then we will discuss about the SLA, MSA, statement of work, and all these kind of things. So these are the key things we have to understand in this examination. But even if you feel these topics are very smaller team, what we have to understand is you must be able to correlate all these things. So we know that AWS S3 is a storage, which is an object storage. And because it is an object storage, it is available everywhere. So what all security risk is there? How can we encrypt it? What are the legal issues for that? So all these things we have to able to correlate. Why? Because every question you get in this examination is more from a scenario perspective. Almost 80% questions you get in the exam is more from a scenario-based perspective. So it's not about memorizing all these theoretical things, but more than that, understand the concepts very clear. Once you're able to understand the concepts, then the exam will be much more easier to you. So I'll give a simple example. Now you know the concept of BCPDR or BCDR. You know what is BCDR. Like I want to ensure my business continuity. I know what is disaster recovery. But they will give you a scenario and ask you, what is the first thing to do here? What is the best practice? What is the least preferred one? Like the same way, the questions can be more from your opinions, the best practices, your suggestions, or the top of a list and those kind of things. Okay, that's it. So these are the things which is basic for the CCSP team. Let me just tell you some few more things about this examination and then we'll finish. Okay, a few more things I want to discuss with you. So now we discuss about the various domains of the CCSP examination. Now I want to tell you some key points to remember. So as we discussed, this examination is more from a best practices. So what we discuss is that this particular certification is something is testing on your concepts, standards, and best practices. Okay, this is basically testing your concepts, standards, and best practices. So what happens is that first of all, team, if you want to pass the examination, the primary thing you have to understand is this is not talking about any cloud provider. This is talking in a generic perspective. Never answer your questions based on a cloud provider's perspective. The next thing is that there is no negative marks for any question, but definitely you cannot see the score. Okay, that's it. And one more thing is there. This examination is not based on your company's best practices. And let's say, for example, I always say think like a manager. So when we say think like a manager, what happens is it is not about the manager I'm saying. Think in the perspective of your business. That's what I'm saying. When we say think like a manager, what we have to understand is that think in the perspective of your business. Okay? Think in the perspective of a business. What does it mean by that? It means that, let's say, for example, now there is a requirement for me to go to the cloud platform. When there is a requirement is there, as a CCSP, as a cloud professional, it is your responsibility to understand the various risks involved and how choosing the best cloud provider, choosing the best solution, what are the responsibilities, legal issues, everything you have to keep in mind. And while designing a solution, you have to ensure that it is meeting your requirements. It is able to give your organization some quality. So all these things must be done in the perspective of business. That is why we say that think like a manager. Okay? Think like a manager doesn't mean that it's like your mindset must be like you are not in the perspective of cloud provider. You are always thinking in the perspective of the business requirements. And one more thing is there, team, the main reasons why people have a challenge in the examination that this examination is basically much more tricky because ICSK want to throw a lot of confusing questions as a part of this. So what we have to understand is that, when you go to this examination, make sure you read the question completely. The first thing you have to understand is read the question completely. Okay, read the question completely. The second thing is that read all the choices. Okay, Read the question completely and then read all the choices. Then only you write the thing. I'll give you a simple example for how to write the examination team. Just give me a second. Let me give you a simple strategy for this. Okay. I'm going to show you a very simple question here. Okay. I'm going to show you a very simple question here. I'm not trying to give you the explanation of this question. Let's say, for example, team, you have a question like this. So first of all, we have to read the question. An agentless technique that retains the characteristics of HIDS and grants visibility to virtual devices. So first of all, team, when we say in the question, there are some key points. In every question, there will be some key points. See, this is a key point. This is a key point. This is the key point. So like that, we have some key points in the question. So in the examination questions, they will have two things. They will have the key points and they will be having the distractors. You will be able to very easily identify the key points, and based on that, okay, go through the answer, and if you are able to eliminate two wrong choices, like if you are successfully able to eliminate two wrong choices, then you will be able to very easily choose between the next two things. Like for example, okay, I know that agentless technique, definitely A is not the answer. Definitely this is not the answer. So once you know there are two things which you can eliminate, then it will be very easy for you to choose between these two things. Okay. So like the same way, whenever you're getting any question in the examination, first of all, you have to read what I will say is read the answer first of all, then read the question, eliminate two bad answers, then choose the best one. So that's one thing, team. The next thing is, okay, one more thing I want to just tell you. Give me a second. So this is what I mean by think like a manager. So when we say think like a manager, never think in the perspective of a cloud service technical person. Like for example, you don't have to think in the perspective of AWS or Azure and all. Think in the perspective of an independent person who is a professional, not a practitioner. That means I am not doing the thing right. I am not implementing it. I ensure that that thing is implemented in a proper manner. That's all right. That's it. And while you write the examination, always make sure that the key points are like this. See, you can see a lot of points like this: most, best, first, worst thing to consider, the least preferred one. So these kind of keywords are very important in the question. Except. So all these kind of words like except or first or most, these words are something which you have to always keep in mind. Because in some questions, they will ask you, what's the first step for doing that? While developing something, what is the primary requirement to certify before going for risk management? What is the first thing we have to understand for doing the BCP? What is the primary requirement for auditing? So all these kind of keywords are very important. So why I'm telling you this is, when you get some questions right, you will feel all the answers are right. If you know these keywords properly, then you will be able to understand the best answer out of it. So then that's about it. So thank you so much, team. And if you have any concerns or queries, you can always get in touch with us. Okay. Thank you for joining, team.